The bonfire crackled, spitting embers into the night sky like tiny stars escaping Earth. I sat on a driftwood log, the salty breeze of Port Haven, Oregon, tugging at my sweater, while my heart pounded louder than the waves crashing below. Across the fire, Javier Alvarez's laughter rang out, sharp and unguarded, as he tossed another stick into the flames. Port Haven was a sleepy coastal town, the kind where everyone knew your name but not your secrets. I, Marcus Reed, had carried mine for years. I was in love with Javier, my best friend since high school, who swore he was straight with every girlfriend he paraded through our lives. Tonight, though, something felt different. His glances lingered too long, his smile too soft, like he was seeing me for the first time. We'd grown up together, two kids navigating a town too small for our dreams. I was 25, a graphic designer working remotely for a Portland firm, my skin dark as the midnight tide, my eyes always searching for meaning in the mundane. Javier, also 25, was a mechanic with hands calloused from fixing cars at his uncle's garage. His Latino heritage shone in his warm brown eyes and the way he carried himself, confident, almost cocky, but with a heart that bled for anyone in pain. He'd always been the sun to my moon, bright and untouchable, while I orbited quietly, hiding my truth. The bonfire was our tradition, a ritual born in our teens when we'd sneak beers and dream of escaping Port Haven. Tonight, the group was small, just us, a few old friends, and the ghosts of our past. As the others drifted to their cars, Javier stayed, his silhouette framed by the dying flames. "You good, Marcus?" he asked, his voice low, like he sensed the storm brewing inside me. I nodded, swallowing the words I'd rehearsed 1,000 times. "I love you. I've always loved you." Instead, I said, "Just thinking about how we're still here. You know? Same town, same beach." He chuckled, sitting beside me, close enough that I could smell the cedar and motor oil on him. "Yeah, but it's home. You ever think about leaving for real?" "Every day," I admitted, my eyes on the horizon. "But then I remember you're here." His breath hitched, and for a moment, the world stilled. He looked at me, really looked, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Curiosity, maybe, or fear. "Marcus," he started, then stopped, his hand brushing mine on the log. My heart leapt, but he pulled back, standing abruptly. "It's late. We should go." I followed him to his truck, the silence heavy between us. The drive to my apartment was quiet, the radio humming some country song he loved. When he parked, he didn't move, just stared at the steering wheel. "You ever feel like you're hiding something from everyone?" he asked suddenly. My pulse raced. "Yeah, all the time." He turned, his eyes searching mine in the dim streetlight. "What's your secret, Marcus?" Could have lied, could have laughed it off. But the weight of years pressed down, and I whispered, "You!" His eyes widened, and for a heartbeat, I thought he'd bolt. Instead, he leaned closer, his breath warm against my cheek. "Marcus," he murmured, his voice trembling, and then his hand found mine, tentative, like he was crossing a line he'd drawn himself. The moment shattered when his phone buzzed. A text from his ex, Carla, asking to talk. He pulled back, muttering an apology, and drove off, leaving me standing alone under a flickering street lamp, my heart a tangle of hope and dread. The next morning, Port Haven buzzed with its usual rhythm. Fishermen hauling nets, coffee shops brewing dreams. I met Javier at the garage, where he was elbow-deep in a Chevy's engine. "About last night," I started, but he cut me off. "Don't, Marcus. I was drunk. It didn't mean anything." His words stung, but his eyes betrayed him, darting, nervous, like he was trying to convince himself more than me. I wanted to push, to demand the truth, but the garage door slammed open, and his uncle Miguel stormed in, yelling about a missed deadline. Javier dove back into work, and I was left with the ghost of his touch. Over the next week, he avoided me. No texts, no calls, just excuses about being busy. I threw myself into my designs, sketching waves and cliffs, but every line curved into his face. Port Haven felt smaller than ever, its streets closing in like a trap. I wondered if I'd ruined everything, if my confession had broken the fragile thread between us. Then, Friday night, he showed up at my door, rain-soaked and shivering. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said, his voice raw. "I'm scared, Marcus. I've never felt this before." I pulled him inside, my heart pounding. "What are you saying?" He stepped closer, water dripping onto my floor. "I'm saying I lied. About being straight. About everything." His hand cupped my face, and when he kissed me, it was like the ocean itself. Wild, unstoppable, and terrifyingly beautiful. But Port Haven wasn't ready for us. The next day, whispers spread. Someone had seen us through my window. By evening, Javier's uncle confronted him, his face a mask of anger. "You're throwing your life away," Miguel shouted, his voice echoing through the garage. Javier stood his ground, but I saw the fear in his eyes, the weight of a town that loved him but might never understand. As we walked back to the beach that night, hand in hand, I knew this was only the beginning. Love was a storm, and we were standing in its eye, waiting for the world to crash around us. The ocean roared below us, a restless beast mirroring the chaos in my chest. Javier's hand in mine felt like an anchor, but the weight of Port Haven's judgment was a tide pulling us under. We stood on the cliffside, the same spot where we'd shared secrets as kids, but now the air crackled with something new, fear, love, and the sharp edge of rebellion. The whispers had grown louder by Monday. Port Haven's gossip mill churned relentlessly. The mechanic's nephew and the quiet artist, caught in a moment too intimate for a town bound by tradition. Javier's uncle wasn't the only one who disapproved. At the diner, old Mrs. Callahan gave me a look that could curdle milk, and Javier's ex, Carla, posted cryptic messages on X about betrayal. I tried to laugh it off, but each glance, each whisper, carved a little deeper. Javier was quieter now, his usual swagger dimmed. At the garage, he worked late, avoiding his uncle's lectures about family honor. I brought him coffee one evening, hoping to steal a moment, but Miguel was there, his eyes narrowing at me. "You're a distraction, Marcus," he said, not unkindly but firm. "Javier's got responsibilities." Javier slammed a wrench down. "He's not a distraction. He's my—" He stopped, the word boyfriend hanging unspoken between us. Miguel walked away, shaking his head, and Javier turned to me, his face a storm of guilt and defiance. "I'm not ashamed of you," he whispered, "but this town, it's suffocating." That night, we escaped to my apartment, the one place we could be us. Javier sprawled on my couch, his head in my lap, and I traced the lines of his face, memorizing every curve. "What if we left?" I asked, half joking. "New city, new start." He looked up, eyes soft but scared. "And leave my family? The garage? It's all I know, Marcus." His voice cracked, and I realized how much he was carrying. His uncle's expectations, his mother's pride, a town that saw him as their golden boy. I kissed his forehead, promising we'd figure it out, but doubt gnawed at me. The next day, trouble found us. Carla confronted Javier outside the hardware store, her voice loud enough to draw a crowd. "You lied to me," she shouted, tears streaking her face. "All those years, and now you're with him?" Javier tried to calm her, but she shoved him, and a few onlookers muttered slurs under their breath. I stepped between them, my heart racing, but Javier grabbed my arm. "Don't," he said. "This is my mess." It wasn't just his mess, though. That evening, someone spray-painted "freak" on my car. I stared at the word, my stomach churning, and when Javier saw it, he punched the hood, his knuckles bloody. "This is my fault," he said, voice breaking. "I dragged you into this." "No," I said fiercely, grabbing his face. "We're in this together. Always have been." He kissed me then, desperate and fierce, right there in the parking lot, and for a moment the world didn't exist. But the world always finds a way back. Javier's mother, Elena, called him home that night. I waited at the beach, my phone silent, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. When he finally showed up, his eyes were red. "She says I'm breaking her heart," he said, sitting beside me. "She doesn't understand, Marcus. She thinks it's a phase." I took his hand, my voice steady despite the ache. "It's not a phase. It's us." He nodded, but the weight of his family's disapproval was a shadow we couldn't outrun. The next week was a blur of small-town cruelty. Anonymous notes slipped under my door, glares at the grocery store, even a client canceling a project with a vague excuse about values. Javier faced worse. His uncle cut his hours at the garage, a silent punishment. Yet every night, we found each other, stealing moments in my apartment or on the beach, our love a fragile light in the dark. One evening, as we lay tangled in my bed, Javier whispered, "I want to be brave for you." His words lit something in me, a hope that maybe, just maybe, we could carve out a place for us in this unforgiving town. But Port Haven wasn't done testing us, and the storm was only beginning to gather. Rain pounded Port Haven streets, turning the town into a watercolor blur. Javier and I stood under a street lamp, the world around us a haze of water and light, but his hand in mine was the only thing that felt real. We were fighting for each other now, against a town that wanted to tear us apart, and every touch was a rebellion. The harassment hadn't stopped. If anything, it grew bolder. Slurs scrawled on Javier's locker at the garage, a brick through my apartment window with a note that read, "Leave." I reported it to the police, but Officer Daniels, a friend of Miguel's, just shrugged. Small towns, Marcus. People talk. His nonchalance was a slap, but Javier's fury was worse. He wanted to confront everyone, to scream our truth from the cliffs, but I held him back. "We need a plan," I said. "Not a war." But war found us anyway, at the town's annual crab festival, where Port Haven pretended to be one big happy family. Javier and I walked together, refusing to hide. The stairs were knives, but we held hands, our chins high. Then Tommy Reed, a former high school bully who'd never grown up, stepped in our path. "Didn't know Port Haven was turning into that kind of town," he sneered, his buddies laughing behind him. Javier's fist clenched, but I squeezed his hand. "He's not worth it," I whispered. Tommy spat at our feet and walked off, but the encounter left us shaken. That night, Javier stayed over, his body tense as he stared at the ceiling. "I hate this," he said. "I hate that they're making you feel like this." "It's not just me," I said, curling against him. "It's us, but we're stronger than them." He kissed me, slow and fierce, and for a moment, the world was just us, our breaths sinking like the tide. The next day, Elena invited me to dinner, a first. I arrived at their small, tidy house, my stomach in knots. Javier's mother was a force, her warmth tempered by a steel spine. Over tamales, she studied me, her eyes searching. "Marcus," she said finally, "you're a good man, but it's hard for me, for us." "I know," I said, my voice steady, "but I love him, and he loves me." She nodded, tears in her eyes, but didn't speak again. Javier squeezed my knee under the table, a silent thank you. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a crack in the wall. Then came the fire. Late that night, the garage where Javier worked went up in flames. The official report said faulty wiring, but the timing felt too convenient. Miguel blamed Javier, accusing him of neglecting the shop for distractions. Javier didn't argue, just walked out, his face a mask of pain. I found him at the beach, staring at the waves. "I've lost everything," he said. "My job, my family's trust." "You haven't lost me," I said, pulling him close. "And you never will." We decided to fight back. Not with fists, but with truth. I organized a community art show, using my designs to tell our story. Sketches of us on the beach, hands entwined, faces lit by hope. Javier helped, his mechanic's hands steady as he built frames. The night of the show, Port Haven showed up, some to gawk, some to support. Mrs. Callahan, the diner regular, bought a sketch, her eyes soft. "Didn't know love could look like this," she said. But not everyone was swayed. Tommy and his crew crashed the event, shouting slurs until security dragged them out. Javier's hand found mine, and we stood tall, our love a shield. As the crowd dispersed, Elena approached, her face unreadable. "You're brave," she said. "Both of you." It wasn't everything, but it was enough for now. The night ended with us on the cliff, the ocean singing below. "We're going to make it," Javier whispered, his arms around me. I believed him, but the shadows of Port Haven loomed, and I knew our fight was far from over. Dawn broke over Port Haven, painting the sky in hues of courage. Javier and I walked the beach, our hands entwined, the sand cool beneath our feet. After the art show, something had shifted. Not just in us, but in the town, as if our love had cracked open a door no one could fully close. The fire at the garage had left Javier jobless, but he refused to break. He started freelancing, fixing cars and driveways, his hands still magic with a wrench. I poured myself into my art, landing a contract for a mural on the town library. A chance to tell our story in colors Port Haven couldn't ignore. But every step forward came with a cost. Tommy's crew hadn't let up, and their taunts followed us like shadows. Last week, they'd slashed my tires, leaving a note, "You don't belong." Javier wanted to confront them, his temper flaring, but I pulled him back. "They want us to break," I said. "Let's show them we won't." He nodded, but I saw the strain in his eyes, the weight of a town that loved him but couldn't accept us. Elena was trying. She invited us to Sunday dinners now, her table a quiet battleground. Miguel still barely spoke to me, but Elena's small gestures, a smile, a second helping of her famous pozole, felt like olive branches. One night she pulled me aside. "I see how happy you make him," she said. "I'm learning, Marcus." Her words were a lifeline, but Javier's silence about his father, who'd left years ago, told me family wounds ran deep. Then came the town meeting. Port Haven's council was debating a pride event, a first for our conservative corner of Oregon. I spoke, my voice shaking but clear, about love, about belonging. Javier stood beside me, his presence a quiet strength. Some cheered. Others, like Tommy's father, a council member, scoffed. "This town's got values," he said. "You're pushing too far." Afterward, Javier was quiet, his hands stuffed in his pockets as we walked home. "What if they're right?" he said suddenly. "What if we're tearing this place apart?" I stopped, grabbing his shoulders. "We're not tearing anything. We're building something better." He kissed me then, under the streetlights, and for a moment, I believed we could rewrite Port Haven's story. But the next day, everything shattered. Tommy and his crew cornered Javier outside the hardware store, their words venomous. It turned physical. Tommy shoved Javier, and Javier fought back, landing a punch before bystanders pulled them apart. By evening, Javier was in the police station, facing assault charges. I bailed him out, my heart in my throat, but the damage was done. Miguel exploded, banning Javier from the family home. "You're no son of mine," he said, and Javier's face crumpled. That night, in my apartment, Javier broke down. "I've lost them," he sobbed, his head in my lap. "My family, my home." I held him, my own tears falling, and promised we'd find a way. But doubt crept in. Could love survive a town this cruel? We decided to leave Port Haven, at least for a while. Seattle was close enough, vibrant enough to offer a fresh start. We packed my car, our lives reduced to boxes and dreams. As we drove out, the cliffs of Port Haven faded in the rearview, and Javier's hand found mine. "I'm scared," he admitted. "But I'm with you." Seattle was a whirlwind. We found a tiny apartment, and I landed freelance gigs while Javier rebuilt his life one car at a time. The city embraced us. Pride flags on every corner, strangers who didn't stare. But Port Haven's pull was strong. Elena called, her voice soft. "Come home for the festival," she said. "The town's changing." We returned for the Pride event, nervous but hopeful. The beach was alive with color, Port Haven's first rainbow flag flying high. Elena hugged us both, tears in her eyes. Even Miguel was there, his nod small but real. Tommy stayed away, but his father approached, offering a gruff apology. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. As the festival ended, Javier and I stood on the cliff, the ocean stretching before us. "We did this," he said, his voice thick with pride. "We made them see us." I kissed him, the wind carrying our laughter, and knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together. The sunset over Port Haven was a fire of gold and crimson, as if the sky itself was celebrating. Javier and I stood on the cliff, our arms around each other, the ocean's song a quiet hymn to our survival. We'd come back to a town transformed. Not fully, but enough to feel like home again. The Pride Festival had been a turning point. Port Haven, once a cage of whispers and glares, had unfurled its first rainbow flag, a symbol of change. Elena's embrace that day had anchored us, her tears a promise of acceptance. Miguel's nod, though small, was a crack in his armor, and even the council member's apology felt like a step toward something better. But it wasn't just the town that had changed, it was us. In Seattle, we'd found freedom, but also ourselves. Javier's confidence returned, his laugh brighter as he worked on cars in a city that didn't flinch at our love. My art flourished, my mural now a beacon on Port Haven's library, a testament to our fight. Yet the pull of home never faded. Port Haven was in our bones. The salt air, the cliffs, the memories of who we'd been before we became us. We moved back 6 months later, renting a small house near the beach. Javier started his own repair shop, a tiny garage with a sign that read Alvarez Auto, all welcome. I worked from home, my designs gaining traction online, each piece a love letter to our journey. The town wasn't perfect. Tommy's crew still lurked, their glares less bold but present. But we'd built a community. Mrs. Callahan brought us pies. Kids from the art show stopped by to chat. And Elena became our fiercest ally, hosting dinners where love was the only rule. One night, Javier took me to the cliff where it all began. The stars were out, the same ones that had witnessed our first confession. He knelt, his hands shaking as he pulled out a ring, simple, silver, etched with a tiny wave. "Marcus Reed," he said, his voice thick. "I was scared to love you, but you showed me how. Marry me." I laughed through tears, pulling him up to kiss him. "Yes," I whispered, and the ocean roared its approval. The ring felt right on my finger, a promise forged in fire and salt. Our wedding was small on the beach at dawn. Elena cried, Miguel offered a gruff toast, and Port Haven showed up. Not everyone, but enough. The rainbow flag flew beside us, and as we danced, barefoot in the sand, I saw the boy who'd claimed he was straight and the man who'd become my home. Years later, we'd tell our story to kids at the library, my mural a backdrop to their wide-eyed questions. Port Haven had grown, its Pride Festival now a tradition, its streets a little kinder. We weren't just survivors. We were builders, our love a cornerstone for a town learning to embrace its own heart. As we stood on the cliff that final night, Javier's hand in mine, I knew we'd rewritten the stars. Love wasn't just a moment. It was a fight, a promise, a life. And we'd won.